Something is shifting right now in the unseen realm. And if your spirit is awake, you can feel it pressing against your life. God is about to amaze you, and before the amazement comes, there is always a stirring, a holy tension, a divine alert that tells your soul, brace yourself. This is not hype. This is not emotion. This is the unmistakable sound of God moving before the evidence shows up. Many people miss their moment because they treat divine warnings like background noise. But today, your heart is being summoned to attention. God is speaking to those who are ready, and readiness is not about perfection, it is about expectation. There are seasons when God comforts you, and there are seasons when God confronts you, but then there are rare moments when God prepares you for astonishment. This is one of those moments. You have prayed prayers that even you forgot about. You whispered requests when you were tired, when hope felt fragile, when strength was low. You assumed time had buried those words, but God does not forget what was spoken in faith, even if it was spoken through tears. Heaven keeps records that earth cannot erase. What you thought was delayed was actually being developed. What you thought was denied was being refined. God has been working in ways you could not see, arranging outcomes you could not imagine, aligning people you have not met yet, and timing events with precision that only divine wisdom can achieve. Do not judge what God is about to do by what you are currently seeing. Sight is a poor prophet. Circumstances are unreliable witnesses. God does not announce His greatest works through visible evidence. He announces them through spiritual unease, through restlessness that pushes you to pray more, through a hunger that refuses to be satisfied with routine faith. If you feel an inner urgency, if you feel as though something is about to break open, it is because God is signaling transition. Before God elevates, He agitates. Before God amazes, He stretches your capacity to believe. Expansion always feels uncomfortable before it feels victorious. There are people listening who have been faithful in obscurity. You showed up when no one applauded. You obeyed when obedience was costly. You trusted God when the outcome was uncertain. You held on when quitting would have been easier. Heaven has been watching every unseen act of faithfulness. God is not unjust to forget your labor, your patience, your endurance. What is coming will not be small, and it will not be subtle. It will be unmistakable. When God amazes you, even your critics will be forced into silence. When God moves, explanations become unnecessary. You must understand this clearly. Amazement is not random. God does not surprise people who refuse to believe. Divine astonishment comes to those who dare to trust God beyond logic. Faith is not pretending reality doesn't exist. Faith is declaring that God is greater than the reality you see. Right now, God is stretching your expectation. He is challenging the limits you placed on Him based on past disappointments. You learn to protect yourself by lowering your hopes, but that coping mechanism is about to be confronted. God did not call you to survive. God called you to witness His power, and power always disrupts comfort. Some of you are standing at the edge of something you cannot explain. Doors are closing that you tried to keep open. Paths are ending that once felt safe. Do not panic. God often clears space before He fills it. What feels like loss may actually be divine evacuation. God removes what can no longer go with you into the next season. You are not being punished. You are being repositioned. When God amazes you, it will not look like your old life upgraded. It will look like a completely new dimension of living. There is a divine acceleration coming. What used to take years will happen in moments. What seemed stuck will suddenly move. What was delayed will arrive with force. But acceleration requires balance. If God moved too quickly while your spirit was unprepared, the blessing would crush you instead of carrying you. That is why God has been strengthening your inner life. That is why you were pressed, challenged, and stretched. Strength precedes surprise. Stability precedes suddenness. God never releases weight without building capacity. You must guard your mouth in this season. Words shape expectation, and expectation determines reception. Do not speak defeat while standing on the edge of deliverance. Do not confess fear while God is releasing favor. Align your language with divine intention. Speak as someone who knows God is faithful, even when outcomes are not yet visible. Faith-filled words create spiritual pathways. Complaints close doors that faith was meant to open. God responds to alignment, not desperation. There is also a call to let go of bitterness. You cannot carry yesterday's wounds into tomorrow's wonder. Resentment hardens the heart, and a hardened heart cannot be amazed. Forgiveness is not saying what happened was acceptable. Forgiveness is saying God is greater than what happened. When you release bitterness, you make room for blessing. When you let go of revenge, you position yourself for restoration. God will not pour fresh oil into a contaminated vessel. Purity of heart precedes power of manifestation. Some of you have been asking God for signs, but God has been asking you for trust. Signs follow belief. They do not replace it. If God showed you everything in advance, you would rely on information instead of faith. Faith is the currency of heaven. Trust unlocks what logic cannot access. Right now, God is inviting you to step beyond what makes sense. Obedience in uncertainty is one of the highest forms of worship. When you move without full clarity, you declare that God's wisdom exceeds your understanding. Do not underestimate the significance of this moment. There are divine appointments ahead that will change the trajectory of your life. Conversations that seem ordinary will carry extraordinary consequences. Encounters that appear accidental will be strategic. God orchestrates with precision. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is random. Every delay, every detour, every disappointment has been working together toward a greater purpose. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are exactly where preparation meets promise. There will be resistance before release. Expect it. Opposition often intensifies when breakthrough is near. The pressure you feel is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign to stand firm. God never abandons those who remain faithful under strain. Endurance is proof of trust. Perseverance refines faith. When you refuse to quit, you align yourself with divine completion. God finishes what He starts, and what He is about to start in you will leave you in awe. Be careful not to compare your journey with others. God's timing is personal. What He does for one may not look like what He does for another, but it will be perfect for you. Comparison breeds impatience, and impatience weakens faith. Focus on obedience, not outcomes. Focus on trust, not timelines. When amazement comes, it will arrive right on time, not late and not early. Your past does not disqualify you. Your mistakes do not cancel divine intention. God specializes in restoration. He rebuilds what was broken. He revives what was buried. He redeems what was wasted. Do not allow shame to silence your expectation. Humility attracts grace, and grace makes room for miracles. The same God who sustained you through survival is now preparing you for overflow. There is a sacred discipline God is awakening within you now, the discipline of expectancy. Expectancy is not wishful thinking. It is disciplined trust. It is the decision to live as though God is faithful even before the evidence arrives. Many people believe God in theory, but hesitate in practice. They speak faith, but plan for disappointment. They pray, but secretly prepare for failure. That inner contradiction weakens spiritual authority. God is calling you into agreement, where what you believe, what you speak, and how you live align under His sovereignty. When alignment happens, amazement follows. God is also confronting hidden agreements you made with limitation. At some point, pain taught you to settle. Disappointment trained you to lower your vision. Survival became your goal instead of obedience. But survival is not the same as purpose. God did not preserve you just to exist. He preserved you to manifest His intention. The moment you stop negotiating with fear is the moment momentum begins. Fear loses its grip when obedience takes precedence. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the refusal to let fear decide. There is a sacred exchange happening right now. God is asking for your trust, and in return, He is offering direction. Trust without direction leads to confusion, but direction without trust leads to resistance. God desires cooperation, not coercion. He leads gently but firmly. When you follow willingly, the journey becomes lighter, even when the terrain is difficult. Resistance creates strain. Surrender creates flow. Flow accelerates progress. Pay attention to how God has been sharpening your discernment. You no longer react the way you used to. You pause, you reflect, you pray. That is growth. Emotional impulsiveness gives way to spiritual sensitivity. Sensitivity allows you to hear what others miss. In a noisy world, discernment is power. God reveals strategies in stillness. He releases wisdom in quiet obedience. Those who rush miss detail. Those who wait receive clarity. There is also a divine recalibration of your priorities. What once consumed your energy now feels empty. What once felt urgent now feels insignificant. This is not confusion. This is clarity forming. God is adjusting your appetite. When appetite changes, direction changes. You no longer chase what drains you. You pursue what strengthens you. Desire refined becomes destiny clarified. God is teaching you to walk by instruction rather than impulse. Instruction builds endurance. Impulse seeks instant relief. Relief fades, but instruction sustains. God's guidance may not always feel exciting, but it is always accurate. Accuracy matters more than speed. Arriving whole is better than arriving fast. God is not impressed by haste. He honors faithfulness. You are also being invited into deeper responsibility for your inner life. External success without internal order creates collapse. God is fortifying your character so that your future will not intimidate you. Intimidation comes when opportunity exceeds preparation. God prepares before He presents. When preparation is complete, opportunity feels challenging but not overwhelming. Confidence grows from knowing God has equipped you. There will be moments when obedience isolates you, saint and firm. Approval is fleeting, but alignment is eternal. God's affirmation outweighs public opinion. When you are aligned with God, even rejection becomes redirection. Even delays become instruction. Even closed doors become protection. Perspective transforms pain into purpose. God is also reminding you that obedience does not always feel logical. Faith rarely consults comfort. Obedience often requires movement before clarity. That is where trust is proven. If you needed full understanding to obey, trust would be unnecessary. God reveals enough to move, but not enough to control. Control belongs to Him. Peace comes from accepting that truth. There is a call now to renew your commitment to integrity. Integrity sustains blessing. Compromise erodes authority. Small concessions lead to large consequences. God's amazement carries weight, and weight demands structure. Integrity is structure for favor. It keeps blessing from becoming burden. It protects you when pressure increases. You must also prepare for seasons where God's activity feels quiet. Silence does not mean absence. Silence often means God is working at a depth that does not announce itself. Roots grow in darkness. Foundations form underground. What emerges strong begins unseen. Do not abandon faith during quiet seasons. Quiet seasons often precede visible expansion. God is also awakening gratitude within you, not gratitude based on outcomes, but gratitude based on trust. Gratitude shifts perspective. It moves focus from what is lacking to who is faithful. Gratitude disarms entitlement and strengthens humility. Humility attracts grace, and grace empowers endurance. A grateful heart remains teachable. A teachable heart remains usable. As amazement approaches, temptation will attempt to distract you. Distractions often appear harmless, even appealing. Not everything that feels good is God. Discernment protects destiny. Stay alert, stay prayerful, stay grounded. God's path may be narrow, but it is secure. Wide paths invite many opinions but little direction. God is also calling you to speak life over yourself consistently. Silence in the face of fear gives fear permission. Declare truth even when your voice shakes. Faith grows through expression. When you speak what God has promised, you reinforce belief. Words are seeds. Speak wisely, sow intentionally. You are entering a phase where obedience will require boldness. Boldness is not aggression, it is confidence rooted in trust. Timidity shrinks potential. Bold faith honors God. When you step forward in obedience, heaven responds. Movement activates provision. Stillness has its time, but stagnation is not stillness, it is avoidance. God is also aligning timing. You may feel urgency, but God operates with precision. Precision produces excellence. Excellence glorifies God. Trust His timing. Timing determines impact. Early arrival confuses. Late arrival misses. Right timing multiplies effect. God's timing is never accidental. Remain committed to prayer, not as ritual, but as relationship. Relationship sustains resilience. When challenges arise, relationship anchors you. When success arises, relationship humbles you. God desires closeness more than performance. Performance exhausts, relationship empowers. You are not walking toward uncertainty, you are walking toward fulfillment. Uncertainty is only the space between promise and manifestation. God occupies that space. You are not alone in the waiting. You are being guided, strengthened, and refined. Every step matters. Every decision counts. What God is about to do will require maturity to manage and humility to maintain. Stay faithful. Stay aligned. Stay obedient. Let amazement find you prepared, not surprised. Let wonder deepen your trust, not inflate your pride. Let blessing, NG, strengthen your devotion, not replace it. And as the unfolding continues, you will recognize that the greatest amazement is not only what God does around you, but what He has accomplished within you, shaping you into someone who can carry His purpose with clarity, courage, and unwavering trust in God alone. There is another layer God is unfolding now, the discipline of memory. Not memory that traps you in regret, but memory that testifies to faithfulness. God wants you to remember correctly. Some people remember pain more vividly than provision, failure more clearly than rescue. That imbalance weakens courage. When you remember how God sustained you when you had no answers, your confidence for what lies ahead becomes steady. Remembrance is a spiritual weapon. It anchors you in truth when circumstances try to rewrite your story. You did not survive by chance. You were carried by intention. God is also teaching you how to wait without wasting. Waiting is not inactivity, it is preparation. In waiting, motives are purified, patience is strengthened, and dependence is deepened. Those who wait with trust do not stagnate, they mature. Impatience tries to escape discomfort, but patience extracts wisdom from it. God does not delay to frustrate you, He delays to fortify you. When you learn to wait well, you learn to receive well. There is a refining of ambition taking place. Ambition driven by insecurity seeks validation. Ambition surrendered to God seeks alignment. When ambition bows, purpose rises. God does not diminish your vision, He clarifies it. He removes the need to prove and replaces it with the desire to obey. When approval is no longer your fuel, endurance becomes possible. Obedience outlasts applause. Faithfulness survives obscurity. God rewards what endures. You are also being prepared to steward increase without losing simplicity. Complexity often grows with success, but simplicity preserves focus. God's power is not complicated, it is precise. As responsibilities multiply, return often to what is essential. Prayer, integrity, gratitude, humility. These are not elementary practices, they are sustaining forces. When life becomes demanding, simplicity becomes strength. God is sharpening your response to adversity. Instead of reacting with frustration, you are learning to respond with trust. Response reflects maturity. Reaction reveals fear. God equips those who pause long enough to listen before they act. Wisdom often arrives after restraint. Restraint protects direction. Direction protects destiny. There is also a warning wrapped in kindness. Do not romanticize struggle. Struggle teaches, but it is not the goal. God does not keep you in hardship to prove loyalty. He leads you through it to produce clarity. When seasons change, do not cling to what God has released. Gratitude honors the past. Obedience embraces the future. Transition requires courage. Courage grows from trust. God is aligning you with truth that demands action. Truth without action becomes information. Action transforms truth into testimony. When you act on what God reveals, understanding deepens. Revelation is progressive. Light increases with obedience. If you move with what you have, more will be given. Stagnation dims perception. Movement sharpens it. You must also prepare for prosperity with vigilance. Prosperity tests focus as much as adversity tests faith. When needs are met, dependence can weaken unless intention is renewed. Keep God central when comfort increases. Comfort can lull awareness if gratitude fades. Stay awake, stay reverent. Prosperity managed with humility becomes a tool for good. Prosperity managed with pride becomes a snare. God is strengthening your ability to forgive quickly and completely. Unforgiveness drains spiritual energy and clouds discernment. Forgiveness clears vision. It restores peace. It frees you from carrying what God never asked you to hold. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it is releasing the right to retaliate. God is the just judge. Trust Him with outcomes. Your role is obedience. There is an invitation to deepen your prayer life beyond requests into communion. Communion transforms perspective. When prayer becomes relationship, fear loses its voice. Relationship stabilizes faith. In closeness, direction becomes clearer. Courage becomes stronger. And peace becomes steady. God is near to those who seek Him sincerely. You're also learning to value consistency over intensity. Intensity burns bright but fades quickly. Consistency builds lasting impact. God honors steady faith. Daily obedience compounds into extraordinary outcomes. Small acts of faith, repeated faithfully, shape destiny. Do not underestimate the power of the ordinary surrender to God. God is reminding you that identity precedes assignment. Know who you are before you chase what you do. When identity is secure, assignment becomes clear. Confusion arises when activity replaces identity. Rest in who God has shaped you to be. From that rest, purpose flows naturally. There will be moments when God's instruction challenges your preferences. Preferences reflect comfort. Instruction reflects purpose. Choose purpose. Purpose carries meaning that comfort cannot provide. When purpose leads, sacrifice makes sense. When comfort leads, compromise follows. Choose wisely. God is also aligning mentors, wisdom, and correction around you. Correction is not condemnation, it is protection. Those who resist correction resist growth. Receive instruction with humility. Wisdom saves time. It prevents unnecessary pain. God uses counsel to preserve destiny. You are being trained to recognize divine timing in opportunity. Not every Woody option is God's option. Discernment prevents distraction. Stay anchored. Measure opportunities by alignment, not appearance. God's will carries peace even when it requires courage. There is a deeper courage God is cultivating in you now. The courage to trust Him beyond outcomes. Many trust God for results, but few trust Him with process. Process humbles the soul. It strips away entitlement and builds resilience. God values who you are becoming as much as what you are receiving. When you embrace process, frustration loses power. Resistance fades when purpose becomes clear. God is not slow, He is intentional. Every step is measured. Every pause is purposeful. God is also confronting the way you interpret silence. Silence does not mean refusal. Silence often means refinement. In silence, motives surface. In silence, patience is tested. In silence, trust proves its depth. Those who abandon faith in silence never see what sound was preparing. Stay attentive. Silence sharpens hearing. When God speaks after silence, direction carries clarity and authority. You are being taught to recognize divine order in apparent chaos. Chaos unsettles the unprepared, but it organizes opportunity for the discerning. God brings order from confusion, clarity from complexity, and direction from disorder. Do not fear upheaval. Upheaval often precedes establishment. When foundations are adjusted, structures become stable. God is reordering priorities, refining focus, and aligning your steps. There is a strengthening of spiritual stamina taking place. Short bursts of faith are not enough for long assignments. God builds endurance so you can carry responsibility without exhaustion. Stamina grows through consistent devotion, honest prayer, and disciplined obedience. When stamina is strong, pressure does not overwhelm. Pressure reveals capacity. God is increasing yours. God is also deepening your understanding of sacrifice. Sacrifice is not loss, it is investment. What you release in obedience returns in purpose. Sacrifice refines intention. It clarifies what truly matters. When sacrifice is embraced willingly, joy follows naturally. Joy rooted in obedience cannot be shaken by circumstance. You are learning to distinguish between urgency and importance. Urgency demands reaction. Importance demands discernment. God leads by importance. When you prioritize what God emphasizes, peace follows. When you chase urgency, anxiety grows. Discernment quiets noise. Focus strengthens direction. God is awakening a holy boldness in your prayer, not arrogance, but confidence anchored in trust. Bold prayer honors God's sovereignty. It acknowledges His power without presumption. When you pray boldly, you declare that God is able. When you pray humbly, you declare that God is wise. Both are necessary. Balance sustains faith. There is also a reminder to guard your inner dialogue. Thoughts shape perception. Perception shapes response. God's truth must govern your mind. Replace assumptions with prayer. Replace worry with trust. Replace doubt with remembrance. What you allow to dwell will eventually direct. Choose wisely. God is training you to stand firm without becoming rigid. Flexibility guided by conviction creates resilience. Rigidity resists growth. Conviction anchored in trust allows adaptation without compromise. God's guidance adjusts methods, not principles. Stay anchored while remaining responsive. You are also being prepared to celebrate without forgetting humility. Celebration honors God's work. Humility honors God's authority. Together they preserve alignment. When success arrives, remember dependence. When recognition comes, remember obedience. Gratitude keeps success from distorting perspective. God is refining your patience with people. People grow at different rates. Compassion reflects understanding. Understanding reflects maturity. God's patience with you becomes the measure of your patience with others. Extend grace. Grace multiplies peace. There is an awakening of responsibility toward truth. Truth must be lived, not just believed. Integrity transforms belief into witness. When your life reflects truth, credibility follows naturally. God uses credibility to extend influence. Influence increases responsibility. Responsibility demands humility. You are learning that obedience often requires quiet courage. Loud faith draws attention, but quiet faith builds endurance. God values faith that persists without applause. Faithfulness in private prepares you for stewardship in public. God entrusts more to those who handle little with care. God is also reminding you that rest is not weakness. Rest restores clarity. Rest renews strength. Rest acknowledges dependence. When you rest, you declare trust. Overwork driven by fear denies sovereignty. Balance honors God's design. There will be seasons when God asks you to step back so He can step forward. Yielding control invites intervention. Intervention brings resolution. Trust creates space for God's power to move without interference. Stay attentive to instruction. Stay responsive to correction. Stay anchored in prayer. The path ahead will require wisdom, courage, and consistency. God is not leading you into confusion, but into clarity. Each step forward confirms alignment. Each act of obedience strengthens trust. As you continue to walk with attentiveness and humility, the unfolding will reveal depth beyond expectation, purpose beyond imagination, and faith beyond measure, shaped steadily by the wisdom, authority, and faithfulness of God, who directs every step according to His perfect will. There is a sacred responsibility God is placing upon you now, the responsibility to trust Him, even when success begins to redefine your surroundings. Many can trust God in lack, but fewer can trust Him in abundance. When God begins to amaze you, the environment around you will change, expectations will rise, and pressure will increase. This is not a threat. It is an invitation to deeper reliance. God does not remove challenges when He blesses. He increases grace to meet them. Stay dependent. Dependence is not weakness, it is wisdom. God is also teaching you how to listen beyond words. Guidance does not always arrive as instruction. Sometimes it arrives as restraint. A pause can be as powerful as a command. When God restrains you, He's protecting your future. Impulsive steps can undo patient preparation. Learn to respect the pause. Stillness often carries instruction that movement would drown out. There is a refining of your emotional strength happening now. Emotional strength is not the absence of feeling, it is the mastery of response. God does not ask you to ignore emotion, but to submit it. When emotions are governed by trust, clarity replaces confusion. God's peace is not fragile, it is resilient. It remains steady even when circumstances fluctuate. You are also being trained to recognize divine favor without becoming dependent on validation. Favor opens doors, but validation must not become your anchor. Anchors belong to God alone. When approval becomes necessary, compromise becomes tempting. God's approval is sufficient. It steadies identity and strengthens resolve. Know whose voice matters most. God is expanding your understanding of obedience beyond action into attitude. Obedience with resentment weakens joy. Obedience with trust strengthens peace. God examines the heart as much as the hands. When attitude aligns with action, fulfillment follows. Alignment produces harmony within. There is also a call to deepen generosity, not just with resources, but with grace. Generosity of spirit transforms environments. It disarms hostility and invites cooperation. God gives freely and teaches His people to reflect that freedom. When generosity flows, scarcity loses influence. God is sharpening your ability to recognize when to speak and when to remain silent. Silence can be strategic. Words carry weight, and timing determines impact. Wisdom knows when restraint preserves peace and when truth must be voiced with courage. Ask for discernment. God grants it generously to those who seek sincerely. You are being prepared for moments when obedience requires standing alone. Solitude tests conviction. When consensus fades, commitment remains. God strengthens those who stand firm without applause. Courage built in solitude sustains leadership in public. God is also teaching you to interpret resistance correctly. Resistance does not always mean opposition. Sometimes it reveals significance. The greater the assignment, the greater the resistance. Do not retreat when resistance appears. Examine, pray, and proceed with wisdom. God equips those He sends. There is a purification of motive continuing within you. Motive determines outcome. When motive is pure, effort is sustained. God refines motive so that success does not distort purpose. Purpose rooted in trust remains steady regardless of scale. You are learning to value obedience over outcome. Outcome belongs to God, obedience belongs to you. When you focus on obedience, pressure lifts. God handles results with precision. Trust Him with completion. God is reminding you that humility attracts instruction. Instruction preserves direction. Direction ensures progress. Pride isolates. Humility connects. Stay teachable. Growth thrives in teachability. There will be times when God's instruction challenges cultural norms or popular opinion. Stand firm. Truth does not change to fit comfort. Comfort adjusts when truth is honored. God's wisdom outlasts trends and opinions. God is also strengthening your spiritual vision. Vision sees beyond immediate circumstances. Vision discerns purpose in delay and meaning in movement. When vision is clear, perseverance becomes possible. Ask God to keep your vision aligned with His will. You are being invited to deepen your commitment to righteousness, not as performance, but as devotion. Righteous living reflects trust. It declares that God's ways are sufficient. Integrity is not restrictive, it is liberating. It frees you from regret and preserves peace. God is preparing you to steward influence wisely. Influence magnifies character. What you carry internally will eventually be seen externally. Allow God to refine you now so that influence strengthens others rather than burdens them. There is also a reminder that God's amazement often unfolds in stages. Do not despise beginnings. Each stage carries instruction. Honor the process. Gratitude for each step invites continuation. Stay anchored, stay prayerful, stay obedient. Let trust govern your decisions and humility guard your heart. What lies ahead is not built on chance, but on careful preparation and divine wisdom. As you continue to walk attentively, you will recognize that every adjustment, every delay, every refinement was purposeful, leading you steadily into a place where amazement is not fleeting emotion, but enduring testimony, revealing the faithfulness, authority, and perfect guidance of God, who alone directs the path of those who trust Him fully. Stop right there. Stop scrolling. Stop breathing for a moment if you have to, because what you're about to hear is not a motivational idea, not a comforting phrase, not a temporary emotional lift. This is a divine interruption. This is a holy announcement. This is a moment where heaven presses pause on your panic and speaks directly into your anxiety. You have worried long enough. You have calculated, feared, and overthought long enough. Today, the burden lifts. Today, the pressure breaks. Today, God declares something that your past, your bank account, your background, and your circumstances never could. From this moment forward, God is funding your life. Hear that again, not with your ears, but with your spirit. God is funding your life, not sponsoring you for a season, not helping you occasionally, not assisting when things are convenient, funding, supplying, sustaining, backing you with divine authority and unlimited provision. You have been acting like you are alone, like everything depends on you, like if you don't worry, nothing will work. But worry was never your assignment. Fear was never your responsibility. God did not create you to survive on anxiety. God created you to live by trust, to move by faith, to rest in divine certainty. And today, God is calling you out of survival mode and into supply mode. Worry has been draining your energy, not because you are weak, but because you have been carrying something you were never designed to carry. Worry is the tax of self-dependence. The moment you believe everything depends on you, worry shows up to collect payment. But when you recognize that God is your source, worry loses its legal right to stay. You were never meant to fund your own destiny. You were never meant to stress your way into provision. God does not respond to panic. God responds to faith. And faith begins where worry ends. You have been asking yourself questions that were never meant for you to answer. How will I pay this? How will this work out? What if it fails? What if I lose everything? What if nothing changes? Those questions were never assigned to your mind. They belong in the hands of God. When God funds your life, God also manages the details. You don't need to see the full picture to walk in peace. You only need to know who holds the blueprint. God does not fund confusion. God funds obedience. God funds trust. God funds alignment. Let this truth settle deep within you. God is not reacting to your needs. God anticipated them before you were aware of them. Before the bill arrived, before the door closed, before the opportunity disappeared, before the pressure intensified, God already had provision in motion. What looks delayed to you is often perfectly timed by God. What feels like lack is often preparation. What appears empty is often space being cleared for something greater. God does not fund panic-driven decisions. God funds purpose-driven lives. You must understand this with absolute clarity. Worry is not humility. Worry is not responsibility. Worry is not wisdom. Worry is a signal that trust has been misplaced. And today, God is calling you to relocate your trust. Take it off your strength. Take it off your plans. Take it off people. Take it off systems. Place it fully on God. When God becomes your source, everything else becomes a channel. Channels can dry up. God never does. Channels can change. God remains constant. Channels can fail. God never fails. There are people listening to this right now who have been awake at night, staring at ceilings, replaying scenarios, calculating numbers, imagining worst case outcomes. God sees every one of those nights. God counts every tear you pretended not to cry. God hears every silent prayer you whispered when you didn't have the strength to speak out loud. And God says to you now, you have worried enough. I have not forgotten you. I have not abandoned you. I have not miscalculated your future. I am funding your life. When God funds your life, provision does not always arrive the way you expect. Sometimes it arrives as strength instead of money. Sometimes it arrives as wisdom instead of opportunity. Sometimes it arrives as restraint instead of release. But every form of provision carries the same signature, peace. When God is funding your life, peace becomes your evidence, not the absence of challenges, but the presence of calm within them. Not the lack of pressure, but the refusal to be crushed by it. You have been measuring your life by visible resources, but God measures your life by invisible alignment. You have been counting what you lack, while God has been counting what you are becoming. You have been afraid of tomorrow, while God has already secured it. When God funds your life, tomorrow is not a threat. Tomorrow is an appointment with provision you haven't seen yet, doors you haven't imagined yet, strength you haven't needed yet. Stop worrying, because worry has been lying to you. Worry told you that if you don't stress, nothing will change. But stress never created a miracle. Panic never opened a door. Fear never funded a destiny. God does not move because you are anxious. God moves because God is faithful, and faithfulness does not require your nervous system to collapse in order to operate. Some of you are holding on to worry because it feels like control. You think if you let go, everything will fall apart. But listen carefully. What you are calling control is actually bondage. What you are calling responsibility is actually exhaustion. God is not asking you to become careless. God is asking you to become confident. Confident that divine provision is not fragile. Confident that your life is not hanging by a thread. Confident that what God started, God will sustain. You need to hear this clearly. God is not funding your life reluctantly. God is not funding your life with limitation. God is not watching heaven's resources and worrying if there is enough for you. Divine supply is not scarce. Divine provision is not competitive. You are not taking from someone else by trusting God. There is no shortage in God. There is no delay in God's intention. There is no confusion in God's plan. You may have been raised to believe that struggle is the price of worthiness. That if life isn't hard, you're doing something wrong. That peace is suspicious and rest is irresponsible. But God is dismantling that mindset right now. God does not fund burnout. God does not reward anxiety. God does not glorify suffering for suffering's sake. God glorifies trust. God honors alignment. God sustains those who rely on divine wisdom instead of human panic. There are seasons when God allows pressure not to break you, but to teach you where your supply truly comes from. There are moments when God removes certain supports so you can discover that God was always the foundation. If everything around you feels unstable, it may be because God is inviting you to lean more deeply into divine certainty. When God funds your life, you don't need everything to make sense. You only need to stay surrendered. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not failing. You are transitioning. And transitions often feel uncomfortable because old systems no longer work, but new ones are still forming. This is not the time to panic. This is the time to trust. This is the time to declare, even when it feels unnatural, God is my source, God is my supply, God is funding my life. When you speak that truth, something shifts internally. Worry loses its voice. Fear loses its authority. Anxiety loses its grip. Not because your circumstances instantly change, but because your position changes. You move from beggar to believer, from victim to steward, from desperation to expectation. God does not fund despair. God funds destiny. Let me speak to the part of you that feels ashamed for worrying. Release that shame. God is not angry with you for being human. God is inviting you to grow. Growth does not come through condemnation. Growth comes through revelation. And here is the revelation. You are not alone in carrying your life. God has always been involved, even when you didn't see it, even when you doubted it, even when you tried to do everything yourself. There are financial pressures you haven't told anyone about. There are responsibilities you carry silently. There are expectations placed on you that feel heavier than you can manage. God sees it all, and God is not asking you to carry it without help. God is asking you to hand it over. When God funds your life, your role shifts from provider to partner. You move with God, not ahead of God. You wait when God says wait. You move when God says move. And provision follows alignment every single time. You must stop interpreting delay as denial. Stop interpreting silence as absence. Stop interpreting challenge as abandonment. God is not distant. God is deliberate. What you call waiting, God calls preparation. What you call lack, God calls focus. What you call uncertainty, God calls faith-building territory. God does not waste seasons. God uses them. Worry has been making you forget how far you've already come. Look back for a moment, not with regret, but with recognition. There were moments you thought you wouldn't survive, situations you thought would destroy you, needs you thought would never be met, yet you are still here, sustained, standing, breathing. That was not luck. That was not coincidence. That was funding. That was provision. That was God quietly, faithfully supplying what you needed before you even knew how to ask. If God funded you then, God will fund you now. If God sustains you through confusion, God will sustain you through clarity. If God provided in uncertainty, God will provide in transition. God's track record does not suddenly fail when your situation changes. Divine faithfulness is not seasonal, it is constant. You are not meant to live with a clenched spirit. You are not meant to move through life bracing for impact. God is calling you to exhale, to release, to rest without guilt. Rest is not laziness. Rest is trust in action. When you rest, you declare that God is working even when you are still. When you rest, you declare that divine provision does not depend on your exhaustion. Some of you have been trying to fix tomorrow with today's worry, but worry cannot reach the future. Only trust can. When God funds your life, tomorrow is already handled. You don't need to micromanage what God has already managed. You don't need to anticipate disaster where God has already planned provision. The future is not empty. It is filled with God's intention. Let your mind be renewed right now, not by positive thinking, but by divine truth. Truth that says you are supported. Truth that says you are seen. Truth that says you are supplied. God is not testing you to see if you can survive without help. God is teaching you how to live with divine partnership. You must let go of the belief that peace comes after everything is solved. Peace comes before. Peace is the environment in which solutions appear. When you stop worrying, you don't become passive. You become positioned. Positioned to hear clearly. Positioned to move wisely. Positioned to receive what panic would have blocked. God is not asking you to ignore reality. God is asking you to interpret reality through faith instead of fear. Reality says the numbers don't add up. Faith says God is the source. Reality says the door is closed. Faith says another one exists. Reality says why? Or stretched thin. Faith says divine strength is sufficient. There is a calm that does not come from circumstances improving, but from trust deepening. That calm is available to you right now, not tomorrow, not when things change, now. Because God is not waiting for your situation to improve before committing to you. God committed long before the situation existed. You are funded, not hypothetically, not eventually, now. Every breath you take is provision. Every idea you receive is provision. Every opportunity that aligns is provision. Every delay that protects you is provision. God's funding does not always look like abundance at first glance. Sometimes it looks like restraints. Sometimes it looks like redirection. But it always leads to sustainability. Stop apologizing for trusting God. Stop explaining your peace to people who thrive on panic. You don't need permission to rest in faith. You don't need approval to release worry. God's backing is enough. God's support is sufficient. God's funding is secure. And even now, as you listen, something inside you is settling. The noise is quieting. The tension is loosening. That is not imagination. That is alignment. That is your spirit recognizing truth. That is worry losing ground. Stay here. Stay open. Stay receptive. God is not finished speaking to you. You are stepping into a phase where provision will meet obedience, where peace will guard your decisions, where trust will replace tension, not because life becomes perfect, but because your source becomes clear. God is funding your life. And when God funds something, it is sustained, protected, and guided. Do not rush this moment. Let it reshape how you see yourself. You are not a burden. You are not an afterthought. You are not forgotten. You are intentionally supported by divine wisdom. God does not invest without purpose. God does not fund without vision. Your life matters. Your assignment matters. Your peace matters. And even if tomorrow still holds questions, you will face them differently. Not with dread, but with confidence. Not with fear, but with trust. Not with worry, but with awareness that you are not alone in carrying what lies ahead. God is present. God is active. God is supplying. Let the old habit of worry fall away, not through effort, but through revelation. You don't stop worrying by trying harder. You stop worrying by trusting deeper. And trust deepens when you recognize that God has always been ahead of you, preparing, providing, sustaining, guiding, funding. Your life is not an accident struggling to survive. It is a divinely supported journey moving toward purpose. And even now, even here, even before everything makes sense, God is funding your life, and that truth continues to unfold, to expand, to anchor you as you move forward with a heart that is learning, slowly and surely, to rest without fear, to walk without panic, to live without the weight of worry pressing down. Because the source has been secured, the support has been established, and the provision continues to flow as you remain open, aligned, and aware of the divine presence that does not withdraw, does not hesitate, does not diminish, but remains constant, sufficient, and actively involved in every unfolding moment of your life. There is another level of peace God is calling you into, and it is deeper than emotional calm. It is the peace that comes from alignment, the peace that settles when your spirit agrees with divine order. Many people want provision without alignment, comfort without surrender, supply without trust. But God's funding flows most powerfully when your heart is positioned correctly. When your inner world is aligned with divine truth, your outer world begins to reorganize itself, not instantly, not magically, but inevitably. Because what is aligned with God cannot remain unsupported. You must understand that worry is not only exhausting, it is also limiting. Worry narrows your vision. It shrinks your expectation. It makes you plan small and dream cautiously. But God never designed you to think in survival terms. God designed you to live with vision, to see beyond what is visible, to expect beyond what is logical. When God funds your life, your thinking must expand to match divine supply. Small thinking cannot contain unlimited provision. There are moments when God allows you to reach the end of your own resources, so you can finally discover the beginning of divine sufficiency. As long as you believe you can handle everything alone, you will keep exhausting yourself. But the moment you admit, I cannot do this without God, something shifts. Not because God suddenly becomes available, but because you finally become receptive. God has always been ready. The delay was never in heaven, it was in surrender. Some of you have been asking God for more, while God has been asking you for trust. Trust is the currency of divine funding, not perfection, not performance. Trust. Trust that God knows what you need. Trust that God knows when you need it. Trust that God knows how to deliver it in a way that does not destroy you. Because provision without wisdom can become pressure, and abundance without alignment can become bondage. God does not just want to give you more, God wants to sustain you in what is given. There is a sacred difference between chasing provision and attracting provision. When you chase, you run from fear. When you align, provision finds you. God's funding does not respond to desperation, it responds to direction. When you walk in obedience, when your decisions honor divine instruction, when your motives are purified, supply begins to follow you rather than you chasing it. This is not because you earned it, but because you positioned yourself correctly. You must stop confusing struggle with destiny. Difficulty does not automatically mean you are on the right path, and ease does not automatically mean you are off it. God is not glorified by your constant strain. God is glorified by your trust-filled obedience. There are battles you are fighting that God never authorized. There are weights you are carrying that God never assigned. And until you release what was never yours to hold, you will keep feeling depleted even in moments of progress. God is not only funding your needs, God is shaping your character. Provision is never just about resources, it is about readiness. God prepares you internally for what will arrive externally. If certain things came too early, they would overwhelm you. If certain doors open prematurely, they would distract you. God's timing is not punishment, it is protection. What feels withheld may actually be preserved. There is also a truth you must face. Worry can become an identity if you are not careful. Some people no longer know who they are without anxiety. They bond with stress. They feel unsafe in peace. But God is dismantling that identity. You are not a worrier by nature. You are a trusting being created to rely on divine wisdom. Peace is not foreign to you. It is your original design. God is inviting you to practice trust daily, not emotionally, but intentionally. Trust is not a feeling, it is a decision. A decision to stop rehearsing fear. A decision to stop feeding worst-case scenarios. A decision to stop allowing your mind to run unchecked. You must discipline your thoughts, not by force, but by truth. When a fearful thought arises, replace it with divine reality. God is present. God is sufficient. God is funding my life. There are unseen systems already working in your favor. Conversations you don't know about. Alignments you didn't plan. Shifts you didn't initiate. God works beyond your awareness. That is why worry is unnecessary. You are reacting to what you can see, but God is operating in what you cannot. Faith is not denial of reality. It is trust in a higher order of reality. You have also been measuring success by speed, but God measures success by sustainability. A fast breakthrough that collapses under pressure is not divine provision. God builds things that last. God funds paths that can be maintained. If progress feels slow, it may be because God is strengthening the foundation. What takes longer often stands stronger. Let go of the belief that rest will make you fall behind. Rest is not retreat, it is renewal. When you rest, you hear better. When you rest, you decide better. When you rest, you recognize opportunities you would have missed while rushing. God often speaks most clearly when you are no longer frantic. Silence is not empty when God is present. You are also learning that provision does not always come in the form you expect. Sometimes God funds your life by removing what drains you. A relationship ends, a door closes, a plan collapses, and at first it feels like loss, but later you realize it was preservation. God saved you resources by preventing you from investing in what would never return peace. Not every ending is failure. Some endings are funding in disguise. God is teaching you discernment, not dependence on noise. When you trust divine guidance, you don't need constant reassurance from people. You don't need approval to feel secure. You don't need comparison to validate your journey. You know who your source is. And when your source is secure, your identity becomes stable. There will be moments when fear tries to return, when old habits attempt to resurface. Do not panic when that happens. Awareness is progress. Each time you choose trust over worry, you weaken the old pattern and strengthen the new one. Growth is not instant perfection. It is consistent realignment. God is not asking you to predict the future. God is asking you to remain present. Presence is powerful. When you are fully present, you can receive guidance. When you are fully present, you can recognize provision. When you are fully present, you stop borrowing anxiety from a future that hasn't arrived. God's funding is always sufficient for today. Tomorrow will have its own supply. You are learning to live from the inside out, not the outside in. Circumstances no longer dictate your peace. Numbers no longer define your worth. Delays no longer threaten your confidence, because your foundation has shifted. You are rooted in divine sufficiency, not external stability. It is a quiet confidence rising in you now. Not arrogance, assurance. The assurance that you are supported even when things are unclear. The assurance that you are guided even when choices feel complex. The assurance that God's presence does not withdraw when challenges appear. This confidence will change how you speak, how you move, how you decide. You will begin to notice that opportunities align more naturally when you are not desperate. People respond differently to you when you carry peace. Clarity comes faster when your mind is not crowded with fear. This is not coincidence. This is the fruit of trust. This is the effect of divine funding operating through a calm and aligned spirit. God is also teaching you patience without passivity. Trust does not mean you stop acting. It means you act without panic. You still plan, but you plan with peace. You still work, but you work without fear. You still move forward, but you move with discernment. Action guided by trust produces results that stress-driven action never could. Remember this deeply. God does not fund confusion. If something constantly robs you of peace, it may require reevaluation. Divine guidance brings clarity even when the path is challenging. When God leads, there is an inner confirmation that steadies you even if the road ahead is unfamiliar. You are becoming someone who can hold provision without being controlled by it. Someone who can receive without fear of loss. Someone who can steward without anxiety. This transformation is just as important as the resources themselves. God cares not only about what you receive, but who you become while receiving it. And as this understanding settles deeper, worry loses its influence. Not because life is perfect, but because trust is established. You no longer react to every fluctuation. You no longer interpret every delay as danger. You no longer allow fear to dominate your decisions. You stand grounded, aware, steady. God's funding is not seasonal. It does not expire. It does not fluctuate with circumstances. It flows according to divine wisdom. And divine wisdom does not fail. You are learning to live from that truth, to breathe from that truth, to decide from that truth. Your life is supported, sustained, and supplied in ways you are still discovering. And as you continue to walk forward, not with worry, but with trust, not with fear, but with faith-filled awareness, this truth continues to unfold within you, shaping how you see, how you respond, how you endure, and how you receive, as God remains present, active, and sufficient in every unfolding moment, guiding you into a life that is not driven by anxiety, but anchored in the deep, steady certainty of divine provision that does not waver, does not withdraw, and does not fail. There is a maturity God is cultivating within you, and it is revealed by how you respond when provision has not yet appeared in visible form. Immature faith panics when it cannot see. Mature trust stands steady even when evidence is delayed. God is teaching you to live from conviction, not from confirmation. When you only believe after you see, you are still dependent on circumstances. But when you believe before you see, you are anchored in divine truth. That is where real stability is formed. God is also shifting your relationship with time. Worry rushes. Faith waits without anxiety. You have been pressured by invisible clocks, deadlines imposed by fear, expectations borrowed from others. But God does not operate under panic-driven timelines. God works with precision, not pressure. When something is delayed, it is not forgotten. When something takes time, it is being formed with care. Divine timing is never random. It is exact. You must recognize that impatience is often disguised as urgency. Not every urgent feeling comes from God. Some urgency is fear demanding immediate relief. God's guidance, even when it calls for movement, carries peace. It does not bully you. It does not confuse you. It does not drain you. If something constantly pushes you into anxiety, it may not be divine direction. God's funding flows where there is clarity, not chaos. There is also a lesson God is teaching you about sufficiency. You do not need everything at once. You need what is required for this step. Divine provision is often progressive, not because God lacks abundance, but because growth happens step by step. If you received everything now, you would skip essential development. God funds each stage according to its purpose. When you reach the next level, the next supply appears. This is why comparison is so dangerous. When you compare your journey to someone else's, you begin to question your own provision. You start measuring your progress by someone else's timeline. But God does not duplicate paths. God personalizes purpose. What is sufficient for you may look different from what is sufficient for another. And that difference does not mean deficiency. It means design. God is also freeing you from the need to explain yourself. When you trust divine provision, you stop over-justifying your decisions. You don't need everyone to understand your peace. You don't need validation to remain steady. God's approval becomes louder than public opinion. When God is your source, you don't negotiate your peace to maintain acceptance. You are learning that true security is internal, not external. External stability can shift overnight. Systems change, people change, conditions change. But divine sufficiency remains. God does not fluctuate. God does not withdraw support because of external instability. When your confidence is rooted in God, instability around you does not destabilize you. There will be moments when provision comes through unexpected channels, paths you never considered, help you didn't anticipate, ideas that arrive quietly. God does not limit supply to familiar patterns. That is why flexibility is important. Rigidity can block reception. When you insist that provision must come a certain way, you may miss how it actually arrives. Trust keeps you open. Worry narrows your awareness. God is also teaching you the power of gratitude before fulfillment. Gratitude is not denial of need. It is recognition of presence. When you acknowledge what God has already done, you strengthen your awareness of divine involvement. Gratitude sharpens perception. You begin to see provision where you once saw lack. You recognize support where you once felt alone. There is a strength forming in you that does not depend on emotional highs, a quiet resilience, a grounded steadiness. This strength comes from knowing that even if things shift, you are not abandoned. Even if plans change, you are still guided. Even if outcomes surprise you, God remains constant. That awareness changes everything. God is also refining your desires. Some things you once wanted were driven by fear, not purpose. Fear wanted safety. Fear wanted control. Fear wanted guarantees. But God is leading you toward desires shaped by trust. Desires that align with growth, not avoidance. Desires that expand you rather than confine you. As your desires shift, so does the type of provision you receive. You are discovering that peace is not passive. Peace is powerful. Peace allows you to respond instead of react. Peace allows you to listen instead of assume. Peace allows you to wait without anxiety. This peace is not produced by circumstances. It is produced by alignment with God. There will still be challenges. Divine funding does not eliminate responsibility. It redefines it. You are responsible for obedience, not outcomes. You are responsible for faithfulness, not control. When you stay faithful, outcomes unfold according to divine wisdom, not human prediction. God is also strengthening your discernment so you know when to act and when to wait. Not every opportunity is provision. Not every open door is a line. Divine funding does not push you into compromise. If something requires you to abandon peace to obtain it, reconsider its source. God's supply does not require the sacrifice of your integrity. You are becoming someone who listens deeply, moves intentionally, and trusts consistently. This transformation is subtle but powerful. Others may not notice immediately, but you will feel the difference. Less tension, less fear, less urgency, more clarity, more stability, more confidence. As you continue forward, you will notice that worry no longer dominates your inner dialogue. It may still whisper, but it no longer leads. Trust takes the lead now. Awareness takes the lead. Divine truth takes the lead. And with that shift, life feels lighter, even when responsibilities remain. God is not finished with you. Provision is not a single event. It is a continuous flow. Each day carries its own supply. Each season carries its own support. You are learning to live within that flow, not resisting it, not fearing it, but moving with it. And as this truth settles even deeper, you walk with a different posture, not hunched by anxiety, but upright with assurance, not rushed by fear, but steady with trust, not drained by worry, but sustained by divine sufficiency. God remains present in every step, every decision, every transition, continuing to fund, guide, and sustain your life with wisdom that does not fail, provision that does not diminish, and a peace Peace that continues to anchor you as you move forward, grounded, aware, and increasingly confident in the divine support that surrounds you now and continues to unfold with every moment. Listen to me carefully. There is a moment coming, so close you can almost feel it, when someone you never expected to hear from again will stand at the door of your life. Their voice will sound softer than it used to. Their words will be carefully chosen. Their apology will seem sincere, emotional, even spiritual. They will say they are sorry. They will say they have changed. They will say they finally understand your value. But before you open that door, before you let memory and emotion make the decision for you, hear this with clarity and conviction. God is not impressed by apologies that arrive only after access is lost. God is not moved by regret that appears when consequences are already in motion. God is warning you in advance, not to harden your heart, but to guard your destiny. Some of you have prayed for years for closure, for justice, for acknowledgement. You ask God to let them see how deeply they hurt you, how unfairly they treated you, how casually they discarded what was sacred. And now suddenly the message arrives, the call comes. The apology is offered. It feels like an answer to prayer, but not every door that opens is sent by God. Not every return is restoration. Not every apology deserves reinstatement. God is saying, this is not about revenge, and it is not about pride. This is about wisdom. This is about discernment. This is about understanding that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. God has been watching the whole story. God saw what they did when you were loyal. God saw what they said when you were silent. God saw how they benefited from your trust and then walked away without explanation. And God also saw the nights you cried, the confusion you carried, the prayers you whispered when no one else knew your pain. Do you really think God would now ask you to hand back what it cost you your peace to rebuild? Do you think God would require you to reopen wounds that He already healed? No. God forgives, but God also protects. God restores, but God does not recycle betrayal. There are people who apologize not because they are transformed, but because they are uncomfortable. They apologize because life exposed them. They apologize because what they thought would work failed. They apologize because the supply dried up, the options disappeared, and suddenly they remember your name. But God is saying, do not confuse desperation with repentance. True repentance is not proven by words, it is revealed by change. And even when change is real, wisdom decides proximity. God allowed them to leave because their presence was limiting your growth. While they were in your life, you were shrinking to keep peace. You were explaining yourself too much. You were tolerating disrespect disguised as familiarity. And God, in His mercy, removed them, not to punish you, but to free you. After they left, you grew. You became stronger. You heard God's voice more clearly. Your confidence returned. Your direction sharpened. Why would God now reverse what He Himself ordained? Understand this. When God elevates you, the past will try to renegotiate its position. People who were comfortable ignoring you at one level suddenly feel entitled to you at another. They will say, I knew you when, but God is saying, they did not honor you then. Familiarity without honor is dangerous. Access without accountability is destructive. God is not asking you to be bitter. God is asking you to be brave enough to say no without explaining yourself. Some of you feel guilty even considering this. You think, if I don't let them back in, am I disobeying God? Listen carefully. God never commands you to abandon wisdom. God never asks you to sacrifice peace to prove forgiveness. Forgiveness releases the debt. Boundaries protect the future. You can forgive someone fully and still deny them the same role they once had. God is not contradicting Himself when He heals you and then warns you. That warning is part of the healing. There is a reason God showed you their pattern before He showed you your promise. God wanted you to recognize cycles before you stepped into elevation. If you bring unhealed people into healed spaces, they will try to turn your growth into something familiar to them. They will say, "You've changed," but what they really mean is, "You no longer tolerate what I used to get away with." God is saying, do not apologize for becoming who He called you to be. That apology coming from your past is not a test of their sincerity. It is a test of your discernment. God is watching how you handle it. Will you be led by emotion or by instruction? Will you be moved by memory or by maturity? Will you confuse loneliness with love? God is saying, you did not survive what you survived to go backward. You did not heal just to reopen what nearly destroyed you. There are seasons where God removes people quietly, without explanation. You begged for clarity, but God gave you distance instead. Now, with time, you see what you couldn't see then. Their inconsistency, their manipulation, their inability to celebrate you without competing with you. God protected you when you were too kind to protect yourself. And now that protection is speaking again. Some apologies are meant to give the other person peace, not to give you responsibility. They want forgiveness so they can stop feeling guilty. They want access so they can feel relevant again. But God is saying, their peace cannot come at the cost of your purpose. You are not obligated to reopen doors God closed. You are not required to revisit rooms God delivered you from. Notice this, when they left, they didn't ask how you would survive. When they hurt you, they didn't stop to see if you were okay. But now that God has strengthened you, now that your life is moving forward, they want to return with words. God says words are easy. Fruit takes time. And even fruit does not automatically restore authority. You must understand that God is more invested in where you are going than in who feels comfortable with you. God has assignments ahead of you that require clarity, focus, and emotional stability. Certain people from your past would only distract you, drain you, or attempt to reclaim influence they no longer deserve. God is not being cruel by warning you. God is being precise. Do not let nostalgia rewrite history. Do not let loneliness make decisions your wisdom already settled. God is reminding you of who you were when they had access and who you became after they lost it. That growth was not accidental. That peace was not luck. That strength was built through obedience. There is also this truth you must hear. Some people apologize because they want the old version of you back. But God has already retired that version. You cannot be who you were and still carry what God has given you. The old you tolerated things, the new you cannot afford. The old you hoped people would change. The new you trust God's discernment more than human promises. God is not saying you should humiliate them. God is not saying you should reject them harshly. God is saying, do not give them what they want if it costs you what He gave you. You can be kind without being available. You can forgive without re-engaging. You can bless from a distance and still obey God. There is a sacredness to the season you are in now. God rebuilt you quietly while no one was watching. He strengthened your spirit, renewed your mind, and taught you to stand alone if necessary. Anyone who enters this season must respect what it took to get here. And if they do not, access is not love. It is negligence. Hear this clearly. God is not afraid of their apology. God is protecting your future. God sees what you cannot see yet. God knows how certain people would derail you subtly, not dramatically, through small compromises, emotional confusion, and old patterns disguised as familiarity. God is saying, stay where you are. Do not move backward to prove maturity. Sometimes the most mature response is silence. You are not responsible for fixing what they broke in themselves. You are not responsible for giving them another chance to prove something they already showed you. God gave you discernment for a reason. Trust it, honor it, obey it, and let this settle deep in your spirit. If God wanted them back in your life, He would not need to warn you. Peace would accompany the decision. Clarity would surround it. There would be alignment, not inner resistance. That hesitation you feel is not fear, it is wisdom. That pause is not bitterness, it is protection. God is saying, thank me for the apology, but do not trade peace for familiarity. Do not trade clarity for comfort. Do not trade destiny for history. You are moving forward, and not everyone from your past is permitted to follow you. There is another layer God wants you to understand, and it goes deeper than emotion, deeper than memory, deeper than human logic. God operates by seasons, and when a season ends, it does not end because of hatred. It ends because its assignment is complete. Some people were only meant to walk with you until a certain lesson was learned, a certain strength was built, a certain dependency was broken. When they return with an apology, it is often because they feel the shift. They sense that you are no longer available to be controlled, diminished, or delayed. God is saying, do not resurrect what He allowed to expire. God is not offended by your compassion, but He is protective of your obedience. There is a difference between mercy and misplaced loyalty. Mercy heals the heart. Misplaced loyalty sabotages the future. God never told you to carry people who refuse to grow. God never asked you to make room for those who only come back when it benefits them. Sometimes the apology is not about reconciliation. It is about access. And God is saying, access is sacred. You must recognize that God has invested too much in you to allow you to be pulled back into emotional confusion. The clarity you walk in now did not come cheaply. It came through tears, surrender, isolation, and uncomfortable obedience. God stripped distractions so He could sharpen your discernment. That is why your spirit now reacts differently. You are not colder, you are wiser. You are not hardened, you are refined. God has upgraded your perception, and with that upgrade comes responsibility. There are people who want closure, but God is not obligated to give everyone an explanation. Sometimes distance is the answer. Sometimes silence is the boundary. God does not owe anyone access to what He is building in you. When God elevates someone, He also narrows their circle. Not because you are better than others, but because your assignment requires focus. Too many voices dilute direction. Too much familiarity weakens authority. God is teaching you that not every emotional pull deserves a spiritual response. Feelings are real, but they are not always reliable. God leads by truth, not nostalgia. The enemy of your future will not always look like danger. Sometimes it will look like comfort, familiarity, and unfinished conversations. But God is saying unfinished does not mean undone. What God closed, He closed with intention. Understand this deeply. The person apologizing may genuinely feel regret, but regret does not equal readiness. God cares not only about sincerity, but about sustainability. Can they honor boundaries? Can they respect growth? Can they support what God is doing without trying to reclaim control? If the answer is unclear, wisdom waits. God is never in a hurry when it comes to destiny. You are not being tested on how loving you sound, but on how obedient you remain. God is watching whether you will choose momentary relief over long-term peace. Emotional release can feel spiritual, but discernment always brings stability. God is calling you higher than emotional reactions. He is calling you into spiritual authority. There is also this truth. God wants you to confront Some people cannot stand the version of you that God has revealed. They prefer the version that needed them, the version that doubted, the version that overgave to feel accepted. When they apologize, it may be because they want that version back. But God has already delivered you from needing approval to feel worthy. You no longer need their validation because God has affirmed you. God is teaching you to value consistency over intensity. Words spoken once do not outweigh patterns repeated for years. God works through order, faithfulness, and fruit that lasts. He does not build futures on emotional promises. He builds them on truth. That is why God says, watch how they live, not how they speak. There is a quiet confidence God wants you to walk in now. Not defensive, not bitter, not reactive, calm, grounded, certain. When you know who God is and who you are becoming, you do not need to argue, explain, or convince. Your peace becomes your answer. Your silence becomes your boundary. Your forward movement becomes your declaration. God is also reminding you that you do not need to reopen a door to prove healing. Healing is proven by stability, not by revisiting pain. Some people think forgiveness means full access. But God teaches forgiveness as release, not re-entry. You can release them to God without reattaching yourself to the cycle. If you allow guilt to guide you, you will betray wisdom. God never uses guilt to lead His people. He uses peace, clarity, and alignment. That pressure you feel to respond quickly, to reassure, to explain, that is not coming from God. God does not rush decisions that affect destiny. He invites reflection, prayer, and restraint. God has already shown you what life looks like without their influence. You are more focused. You are more stable. You are more aligned. That is not coincidence. Hat is confirmation. God does not give peace and then ask you to trade it for emotional chaos. Remember this, obedience is not always dramatic. Sometimes it is simply staying where God placed you and refusing to be pulled backward. Sometimes obedience looks like a polite distance. Sometimes it looks like unanswered messages. Sometimes it looks like choosing God's voice over your emotions. God is not punishing them by keeping them at a distance. He is positioning you. He is protecting the work He has begun in you. And what God begins, He guards fiercely. You are not selfish for honoring what God has done. You are responsible. There is a sacred discipline God is developing in you now, and it is the discipline of restraint. Many people think strength is shown by confrontation, explanations, or dramatic closure, but God is teaching you that true authority is quiet. When God trusts someone with greater purpose, He teaches them when not to speak, when not to react, and when not to engage. Silence, when guided by God, is not weakness, it is mastery. You are learning to move only when God moves and to remain still when He says remain. God is also revealing that not every relationship ends because of conflict. Some relationships end because alignment expires. Alignment is spiritual agreement. And when two paths no longer agree, separation is inevitable. God does not force alignment where it no longer exists. He redirects, He rearranges, He releases. And when someone from your past returns, it is often because they feel the loss of alignment more than the loss of you. They sense that God has taken you forward, and now they want to follow without having paid the price of obedience. You must understand this truth. Destiny cannot be shared with everyone. God entrusts destiny to those who can carry weight without compromising direction. Some people collapse under responsibility. Some people sabotage what they cannot control. God removed them not because they were evil, but because they were incompatible with where He was taking you. Compatibility is not emotional, it is spiritual. And God will not sacrifice vision to preserve comfort. God is sharpening your ability to discern timing. Timing is everything in the divine order. The right person at the wrong time can still be wrong. The right intention at the wrong season can still bring harm. God is saying, just because someone returns does not mean the time has changed. Seasons do not reverse, they advance. And God does not recycle chapters He already completed. There is a maturity God is calling you into that understands this. You are not required to participate in every opportunity for reconciliation. Reconciliation is sacred, but it is also conditional. It requires mutual honor, accountability, and alignment with God's direction. When those elements are missing, reconciliation becomes a burden instead of a blessing. God never burdens His people with relationships that drain life. God is also reminding you that growth changes your capacity. You can no longer carry what you once carried. Your spirit is more sensitive now. Your mind is more disciplined. Your heart is more guarded. What once felt manageable now feels heavy, and that is not regression, that is refinement. God has increased your sensitivity because you are stepping into spaces that require clarity and stability. Do not be surprised if the apology stirs emotion but does not bring peace. God often allows emotion to surface so wisdom can speak louder. Peace is God's confirmation. Confusion is not. Pressure is not. Urgency is not. God does not pressure His people into decisions that affect destiny. He leads with assurance. God is also breaking the belief that love requires access. Love can exist without proximity. Care can exist without involvement. Compassion can exist without compromise. God loves perfectly, yet He does not grant everyone the same level of access. He is teaching you to mirror His order. Inner circles are earned through faithfulness, not history. Some people believe that time alone qualifies them for return, but time without transformation changes nothing. God measures growth by fruit, not by distance traveled. An apology without accountability is incomplete. An apology without humility is shallow. An apology without patience is self-serving. God is teaching you to look beyond words into posture. You are also being trained to honor what God has already revealed to you. He spoke to you through discomfort. He spoke to you through patterns. He spoke to you through peace that arrived only after separation. Do not dishonor that revelation by doubting it now. God does not contradict Himself. What He showed you then still matters now. God is elevating your standards, not your ego. Standards protect purpose. Standards preserve peace. Standards ensure that what enters your life has permission from God, not just desire from people. When someone from your past wants what they once had, they must now meet what God has established. Access now comes with responsibility. There is also this reality. Some people apologize because they want relief from guilt, not responsibility for change. But God is not interested in emotional relief. He is interested in transformation. And transformation takes time, consistency, and submission to truth. God will never ask you to become the testing ground for someone else's growth. God is calling you to trust the version of yourself that obeyed Him in the hardest season. That version prayed when answers were silent. That version stayed when leaving was easier. That version healed without closure. Honor that obedience. Do not undo it by returning to what God already carried you through. You are learning that obedience often feels lonely before it feels rewarding. But loneliness in obedience is temporary. Regret from disobedience lasts much longer. God is training you to choose what lasts. There is a spiritual law God wants you to recognize now, and it is the law of stewardship. God does not only give blessings, He entrusts them. Your peace is a trust. Your clarity is a trust. Your stability is a trust. And God watches how you steward what He has placed in your hands. When someone from your past returns asking for access, they are not just asking for you, they are asking for what God rebuilt in you. God is asking whether you will protect what He entrusted or give it away to satisfy emotion. God never restores someone to a place they have not learned to honor. Honor precedes access in the order of God. If honor was missing before separation, it must be proven before proximity. God does not negotiate this principle. That is why He sometimes allows distance to do what conversation never could. Distance exposes motives. Distance reveals values. Distance shows whether someone truly respects what God is doing or simply wants what they lost. There is also this truth. God allows some apologies to come not for reconciliation but for release. Release means you are no longer carrying resentment, confusion, or unanswered questions. It does not mean you reopen the door. God is teaching you that closure does not always come from conversation. Sometimes it comes from acceptance. Acceptance that God knew what He was doing when He removed them. God is also strengthening your spiritual authority. Authority is not loud. Authority is settled. Authority does not argue with the past. Authority does not negotiate boundaries. Authority simply stands. When God elevates someone into authority, He teaches them not to explain decisions to PE. People who are no longer assigned to their life. Explanation often invites debate. Obedience does not. You must understand that God is preparing you for influence. Influence attracts people who want proximity without discipline. They want benefits without commitment. They want familiarity without accountability. God is saying this is where discernment becomes essential. Everyone who feels drawn to your growth is not sent to walk with you. Some are sent to witness it from a distance. God is also dealing with your identity. You are no longer defined by who walked away, who misunderstood you, or who mishandled you. You are defined by who God called you to become. When someone from your past apologizes, it can stir old identity wounds if you are not anchored. But God is anchoring you now in truth, not history. There is a temptation to believe that kindness requires compliance. God is correcting that belief. Kindness is a posture of the heart, not a surrender of boundaries. God is kind, yet He is firm. He is merciful, yet He is just. You are learning to reflect His nature, not human expectations. God is also revealing that some relationships were built on convenience, not covenant. Convenience disappears when effort is required. Covenant remains when sacrifice is necessary. God separates convenience relationships because they collapse under pressure. Covenant relationships endure because they are rooted in shared obedience. When someone returns only when life becomes difficult, God is showing you what kind of foundation existed. There is also a prophetic dimension to what is happening. Your obedience is speaking louder than any argument you could make. When you do not chase validation, when you do not reopen closed doors, when you do not respond to emotional pressure, it testifies that God is your source, not people. That testimony carries weight in the spiritual realm. God is training you to trust His timing even when it feels uncomfortable. Delayed response is often divine protection. Immediate reaction can lead to regret. God is never offended by patience. He is honored by it. Waiting allows truth to surface. Waiting allows motives to reveal themselves. Waiting keeps you aligned. You are also being delivered from the need to be understood. God understands you fully. That is enough. Not everyone needs your explanation. Not everyone deserves your story. God is teaching you to share your life selectively, not impulsively. God is also reminding you that the past cannot contribute to a future it does not understand. Growth creates distance, and distance is not arrogance, it is alignment. When God shifts you, those who remain behind may feel rejected, but God is simply repositioning you. There is a quiet courage forming in you now. Courage to say no without anger. Courage to stand firm without guilt. Courage to trust God even when emotions rise. This courage is necessary for where God is taking you. The next season will demand emotional maturity, spiritual discernment, and unwavering obedience. God is also protecting you from cycles. Cycles repeat until wisdom interrupts them. You have already learned what you needed to learn. Returning would not bring new insight. It would only repeat an old pattern. God breaks cycles by closing doors permanently. You are not responsible for managing how others feel about your obedience. God never assigned you that burden. Your responsibility is to remain aligned with Him. Let Him handle the rest. He is more capable than you think. God is saying you are not cold, you are clear, you are not distant, you are directed, you are not unloving, you are obedient. And obedience is always rewarded, even when it feels costly in the moment. There is still a final depth God wants to anchor in your spirit. And it is this understanding. Obedience is not passive. It is an active declaration of trust. Every time you choose restraint over reaction, wisdom over impulse, and God's instruction over emotional pull, you are declaring that God's authority in your life is greater than human pressure. Heaven responds to that kind of obedience. Stability is released where obedience is honored. God is also teaching you how to stand without defense. You no longer need to justify your choices to those who did not protect you when you were vulnerable. Defense belongs to insecurity. Confidence belongs to those who know God is guiding them. When God directs a path, He does not require public approval. He requires private obedience. Your life does not need consensus. It needs alignment. You're entering a phase where God is training you to recognize peace as a signal, not a reward. Peace is guidance. When peace withdraws, God is speaking. When peace remains, God is confirming. If the thought of reopening the past disturbs your spirit, that disturbance is not weakness, it is discernment awakening. God speaks gently, but He speaks clearly. God is also revealing that maturity means understanding loss without resentment. You can acknowledge what was without romanticizing it. You can accept apologies without reopening access. You can wish someone well without walking alongside them. This is emotional and spiritual growth. And God is pleased when His people grow beyond reaction into wisdom. There is a divine dignity God is clothing you with now. Dignity does not chase validation. Dignity does not plead to be understood. Dignity does not revisit closed chapters for reassurance. It stands quietly in truth, trusting that God sees everything that others misunderstand. When you walk in dignity, you honor God's work in you. God is also reminding you that every no spoken in obedience strengthens your future yes. Each boundary reinforces your clarity. Each decision to stay aligned builds spiritual muscle. You are becoming someone who does not easily waver, not because you are stubborn, but because you are grounded. Do not underestimate how much God is shaping your leadership through this moment. Leadership begins with self-governance. If you can govern your emotions, your attachments, and your responses, God can trust you with influence. Influence without discernment destroys. Influence with wisdom builds. God is preparing you to build. You are learning that separation does not always come with drama. Sometimes it comes with peace, and peace is God's signature. When He is involved, even difficult decisions carry calm. That calm is not indifference, it is assurance. Assurance that God is ahead of you, making crooked paths straight. God is asking you to walk forward with quiet confidence, knowing that you owe no explanation for obedience. The past may knock, but you are not required to answer. God has already answered on your behalf through growth, through healing, through direction. Remain anchored, remain alert, remain surrendered. God is not finished with you. And what He is doing now is preparing you for what comes next. The strength to let go is just as important as the faith to receive. And you have been given both. So let this truth settle deeply within you, not as a fleeting thought, but as a settled conviction. God is not confused about your path. God is not uncertain about your direction. God is not torn between your past and your future. He has already spoken through peace, through separation, through growth, and through the strength He placed inside you when you thought you would break. The same God who carried you through the loss is the God who is now guarding your next season. Trust that protection. You are saint, standing at a spiritual threshold where obedience matters more than explanation. God is watching how you honor what He has healed. He is observing whether you will choose emotional familiarity or spiritual alignment. And understand this clearly. God never brings you this far to send you backward. He does not rebuild lives just to hand them back to what once damaged them. What He restores, He intends to preserve. Let go of the idea that saying no makes you unkind. Let go of the fear that boundaries make you disobedient. God Himself establishes boundaries. God Himself closes doors. God Himself separates people when necessary. When you align with that order, you are not acting against love. You are walking in wisdom. Love that destroys peace is not love. God requires you to entertain. You are not responsible for rewriting the past to make others comfortable. You are responsible for honoring the future God entrusted to you. That future requires discernment. It requires courage. It requires the strength to stand firm even when emotions try to soften what God made clear. And God will not abandon you in that firmness. He will sustain you. There will be moments when the memory resurfaces, when the apology echoes, when the old attachment tries to speak louder than wisdom. In those moments, remember who you became when no one was there. Remember how God carried you when explanation never came. Remember the peace that arrived only after obedience. That peace is not accidental, it is confirmation. God is shaping you into someone who moves with purpose, not pressure. Someone who listens for instruction, not emotion. Someone who understands that not every open conversation is a divine invitation. You are learning to trust God's voice above your feelings, and that trust will never betray you. Stand confidently in this truth. What God removes, He replaces with something greater. Not always another person, but clarity, strength, direction, and peace. And those are treasures worth protecting. Anyone who truly honors God's work in you will respect the boundaries that came with it. So walk forward without guilt. Walk forward without looking back. Walk forward knowing that obedience is not loss, it is alignment. And alignment always leads to fulfillment. God is with you. God is guiding you. God is protecting you. And where God leads, there is no need to return to what He already delivered you from.